Grassi Posse, welcome to another episode of Game of Toms. Let's jump right into it. I am your host, Tom Grassi. Episode 3, Season 7, The Queen's Justice. A very dense, intense episode in which I was a little bummed out about the lack of fight scenes, but it's actually kind of making me more excited because they're going to take that budget and essentially allocate it towards later episodes where more things are going to be on fire, which I predict is going to be the case next week. But let's jump into this because it was a jam-packed episode. First, the thing that everyone has been waiting for 7 seasons, or if you've been reading the books, over 20 years. You have Daenerys finally meeting Jon Snow in an incredible scene. And one that I think definitely lived up to expectations and the hype that went along with it. And it was interesting because you have these two people that are similar in a lot of ways, but also their personalities are very different. Tyrion with the great line saying, she protects people from monsters and you do too. And when you're talking about Daenerys, you're talking about the monsters in human form. So the slavers, the masters, Cersei. But Jon is protecting people from the literal monsters that are dwelling behind the wall. But Tyrion and Jon, they meet back up again, which is a great reunion because they had very limited screen time together in season 1. The thing you really remember is from episode 3 of season 1, where they meet at the wall, Tyrion's peeing off the wall, and they have that banter back and forth. And so it was nice to see them again. This is also Davos and Tyrion's reunion, which I didn't really think about, but because of the Battle of Blackwater Bay, Davos being on the losing side and Tyrion literally being the reason why they won Blackwater. So that was interesting as well. You also have Davos returning to Dragonstone, and him even commenting that it's a very different place from when he was there with Stannis Baratheon, which was this cold, dark, dreary place. But now you have dragons flying around. Very, very different. By the way, also the Dothraki kind of making an appearance as well. Whoever does their eyeliner, really, they should market that as Game of Thrones eyeliner because those guys are on point. So that was pretty interesting. Also, on the way over to meet Daenerys, there was this great bit where Tyrion's talking about Sansa and is so I hear your sister's still alive. I didn't bang her. It was a very funny scene in which she's just bro, we're still cool because me and your sister, it was fake. It was fake. We never did anything. And then the meeting the dragons scene was amazing as well. In that always happens to the people, when they see them for the first time. And Tyrion's just yeah, it's just a thing that happens here. We just have 3 flying dragons. One of the most interesting parts of the episode, and one I feel is going to be glossed over a little bit, is Melisandre. And I was wondering how that was going to be handled last week, because if Davos ever saw Melisandre again, if Jon Snow ever saw Melisandre again, it wasn't going to end well, because the last time that they were together, Snow basically said, get out, because she killed Shireen. And so this is them coming together again. But Melisandre decided to leave. So she's going back to Volantis, and I thought this was their way of writing her off the show. But the number one thing that I thought of is way back when, in season 2 or 3, when Arya and Melisandre meet, Melisandre says that they're going to meet one last time. And it's interesting because Melisandre says that she is coming back to Westeros one last time because this is where she's going to die. And so I'm speculating that it's going to be Arya potentially that's going to be the one that kills her, considering she's saying that she has to come back one more time. And she also said that Varys is going to be the one. He's going to die in Westeros as well, which is interesting. And I don't know if this is kind of just trying to throw us off the trail that Varys will eventually grow old and die. But this was some very interesting foreshadowing going on. And I loved it. And also there was kind of that nod to I feel Melisandre at one point looked to the camera and was Song of Ice and Fire. I brought Ice and Fire together. I did that. Yeah, Song of Ice and Fire. That's the name of the books. So a little bit of a meta nod to the audience, but very, very good. But I think Arya is going to be the one that eventually ends her, which is going to be interesting because she's not on Arya's list. So I'm curious as to why they would meet once again and Arya would want to kill her. Is it going to have to do something with Gendry, who's still rowing out there after 6 seasons? I don't know. But it'll be I'm very curious to see how that's going to transpire. By the way, there was also some like resume penis measuring contest that was going on, and it was fantastic because you had Daenerys' titles, which went on for a good 30 seconds. She's the breaker of chains, she's the mother of dragons, Stormborn, it goes on and on and on. And Davos was like, yes, Jon Snow. That's it, which was a well done scene. The dialogue was amazing, and you can see that Daenerys has gotten really good at this game because it's interesting because we've seen what Jon Snow has seen. We've seen the Night King, we've seen the White Walkers, but here's Daenerys who has no inkling, and Tyrion, no inkling about the Night King and the White Walkers, and Jon sounds like a crazy person. He's going in there and saying, the dead people are coming back to life. We're all going to die. You need to help us. And if I'm Daenerys, I'm thinking he's a crazy person too. So it was interesting to just see that dynamic because if they didn't show any of the Night King scenes, if they didn't show any of the Whites, how many of you would actually believe that Jon just wasn't crazy? So I thought that was pretty cool. And I think that entire scene was just very, very well done. You also went over into Euron, who is slowly but surely becoming a fantastic villain on the show. And again, I talked about this last week, how boring he was last season. He was just kind of a stereotypical boring villain. But his dialogue is just on point. He gets friend-zoned by Cersei, which is amazing. But when he turns to Jaime and asks for brotherly advice on how to handle Cersei in bed, just phenomenal. Just absolutely phenomenal. I love it. And by the way, the Mountain is totally Darth Vader now. Like, we can all agree on that, I believe. How the way that he stands there. Also, the way that this episode, it's called The Queen's Justice, the number one thing that I thought of was going to be Cersei and Ellaria, because Ellaria, of course, killing Marcella, Cersei's daughter, and this was it was a great scene because Cersei, for a minute, you saw her go back to being human. She kind of broke down a little bit and said, why did you do this? Why did you kill my daughter? And then composed herself and says, okay, now I'm going to make sure that you suffer. And to watch your daughter die and then rot and turn to bone and to keep her alive for all those years, that's pretty twisted. So Cersei really is stepping up her game of being a monster with that kiss of death, which was very poetic as well. Also, Jaime, in the beginning, it was interesting. He said no to Cersei's advances, but then, you had some incest because you can't really go too many Game of Thrones episodes without incest. The Iron Bank was reintroduced. We've seen them a couple of times, but the Iron Bank is a little bit more prevalent in the book. But in the show, we kind of heard about them once and then never really returned to the Iron Bank. But it's interesting to see the economic side of Game of Thrones, and that was something that always impressed me about the books, is that they're so dense and their scope is so big, and there's so many things going on at once that you don't even think about the Iron Bank and the fact that these people are at war and they need money to do that. So it was just interesting to bring that back in, and I like the idea of there being an economic aspect. And you see Jorah is completely saved, so he's cured from Sam, which is great. So Jorah is going to be going back to Dany to get friend-zoned once again. And he's completely cured of grayscale. I thought that Sam was going to be kicked out, but he's not. Now he just has to clean books, which, to be honest, is probably better than scoop and poop. So that's a little bit better. And I want to get, the number one thing I want to get your opinion on is, this is something that's been talked about for so long, about Jon and Daenerys. Now, they're related. Daenerys is Jon's aunt. However, we've seen incest in the show. We saw it again this episode. Were they kind of flirting the second time they were talking? Because I was trying to look at this and go, if they weren't related, I think they'd make a good couple. And then I was like, oh yeah, they're related. So, but so is Cersei and Jaime. It was a weird, I don't know, do you ship them? Do you do that? Is that wrong? I don't know. Is it Wincest? I don't know. Please let me know, because I am very confused about this emotionally and sexually. So, also talking about Sansa, who needs to do something. She is talking about, she's pitching in when she can. She's like, we need more food. People are going to starve. Let's put leather on armor. All right, that's cool. Littlefinger's trying to be like, hey, look, man, like, parallel universes, do everything in your mind. And Sansa's like, yeah, all right, whatever. But the big-ish reunion that no one's talked about, because no one really cares, is Bran and Sansa, which I feel like is the most anticlimactic Stark reunion because everyone wants Bran and Jon to get back together so Bran can tell Jon, hey, you're a Targaryen. They want Arya and also Jon. Yeah, so Sansa's kind of out of the loop with that. But that was also interesting as well because you have Bran basically saying, hey, I'm the three-eyed raven. I've seen everything. And Bran really acting like a high school shooter, kind of just very stone-eyed, monotone. And out of all the things to talk about, he's sitting on the tree and he's going, hey, remember that night you were raped? Man, you looked beautiful that night. What? Dude, that is some creepy ass crap. So, Bran, no more Bran. So I'm kind of done with him, but it'll be interesting when Jon eventually sits down and has that conversation with Bran, and Bran goes, oh yeah, you're a Targaryen. Also, the sewers aspect for Casterly Rock came back, and that Tyrion has alluded to this, that he spent a lot of time in the sewers. That came up again in this episode. And you have the Unsullied taking Casterly Rock very easily, and it was a decoy. Euron comes and burns all of the ships, and they take Highgarden. Now, the main importance of Highgarden is now they have a ton of gold to pay back the Iron Bank, and so the Iron Bank is going to invest in Cersei and the Lannisters, giving them more resources to fight. So there wasn't really any big battle scenes because Casterly Rock was super duper short, and then you didn't see anything with Highgarden, just them marching. Now, I'm just expecting that the budget's going to be used for further episodes, and I think next week is going to be, you're going to see some dragons in action, because here's the prediction, in that while Jaime is going to be returning to King's Landing with all of this gold, because they're showing in the coming attractions that the Iron Bank's like, yeah, we'll back you as soon as we have the gold, I imagine that Daenerys is going to go after Jaime while he's returning, and you've seen in the trailers Jaime in battle with fire all around. I have to think that those are the dragons. Daenerys is going to catch them by surprise and take the gold, which is going to be a big blow to Cersei. Is this where Jaime's going to die? I don't know. It's going to be good, though. You also see that the Tarleys, they joined the Lannisters. But real quick before I get into Olenna, because that was the final scene, it's awesome to see that Cersei is not going down without a fight, because you see, like, you are reminded how good Cersei is at this game. Like, she didn't just wander upon the throne. She is her father's daughter. She really is a great player in the Game of Thrones. And while you thought the first episode, okay, Dany's just going to fly in on dragons and just take the city, that now this is a little bit more even. But the big scene from this week is Olenna's death. And so as soon as they get together, I'm like, oh man, please tell him that you killed Joffrey, please. Because that's something that she's been sitting on since season 4. And Olenna, during her death scene, is just a total badass. And is just sitting there. She's like, all right, well, how's this gonna go? Whatever. But I like also the minute that she's trying to talk to Jaime. And trying to tell him, your sister is a psychopath. I really hope you see that. And I don't think Jaime does. And Olenna has basically said, well, she's going to be the death of you. You're too far gone. You love her. She's a disease and she's going to kill you. And so it seems like Jaime is taking a step back, considering how his role was. And, you know, that arc that he went with Brienne, it seems like a really long time ago. It kind of was at this point 4 seasons ago. But I'm curious to see how Jaime's story is going to end. Is it going to be being burnt alive by dragons? Is it going to be killing Cersei, which like a lot of people have predicted? Or is, you know, he's just going to go off? Cersei's going to be the death of him. I'm curious to see that. But as soon as she drinks the poison and it's like, oh yeah, I killed your son. Tell your sister, who's also, you know, kind of like your wife. That was a badass scene. Olenna has been one of the best characters on this show, and I am truly sad to see her go, but that was a badass way to go. I want to know what you thought about it. If I had to give this a number, it was a 9.5. I love this episode. There was a lot condensed into it, a lot, and they're, again, moving very, very quickly, and I can't believe that this season is almost already half over. Let me know what you thought, though. Put it in the comments. Are you shipping Jon and Daenerys? That's what I really want to know. Are they going to get together? Would you be okay with them getting together? Or are they just going to be, like, friends. Let me know. You can always find me at tomgrossicomedy.com, TOMGROSSI comedy, or at Tom Grossi Comedy on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all that great stuff. Also, check out tom.ting.com to save $25 on your cell phone bill if you would like to. Thank you so much for watching. I may or may not see you next week. I will be in Colorado. Maybe I'll do a quick little episode like on my webcam or something. I won't be in studio, but I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully see you next week. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.